Hello again. For this particular video, we're just going to focus on how to calculate the slope of a line, the line. And when you think of the slope, you think of how steep something is, like, you know, the side of a hill or a mountain. Some hills or mountains are not as steep as others. And sometimes you have, flat surfaces, that would have like zero slope, because it's not rising or decreasing. Or you can have vertical up and down situations, like a wall or a cliff, where it's vertical shear, like straight up and down. That would be considered a slope of undefined slope, okay? And then you have when something is decreasing or going down a hill, that would be like a negative slope. If you have something going up a hill, that would be considered a positive slope. So we're going to calculate that. And slope is basically the symbol for that is m, okay? And the slope is basically the rise compared to the run. And what does that really mean? Well, the rise is basically your vertical distance, okay? And that's compared to the horizontal distance. Okay? And it's basically the vertical distance, okay, when you think about that, all right, it's probably better to think of a stairwell, okay? So let's say I'm only going to use a couple of steps to kind of indicate the point here. I want to make them big enough so that we can see. So let's say you have the beginning of a staircase and you want to go up the staircase. Well, normally what you have to do is you have to lift your leg up, right? You have to lift one leg up. And that's going to cover your vertical distance. Okay, so your vertical distance is going to be up. All right? And it could also could be going down too, but let's just focus on this one, this direction. So we raise one leg up, and then we're going to have to go forward, and that's going to cover some horizontal distance. So when you go up the stairs, you're going to lift one leg up and then put it forward. So one of your legs is going to cover vertical distance and then horizontal distance. And then as you place your first foot on the step, you repeat it with the other foot. You raise it and then put it forward. So now you're standing on the next step. So you basically covered horizontal and vertical distance. So you should be a little bit of higher height than you were before. And then you just repeat that. If you repeat that pattern, you go up and then just go forward. Okay? So when you're dealing with the vertical distance, okay, you're basically dealing with the change in y to the change in x. And you're probably saying, well, what do you mean? Well, when you think about it, right, when you think about a plane, an x-axis and a y-axis, the x-axis measures distance, horizontal distance right and left of 0. The vertical distance is up and down from the origin. So when you go up, I want you to think of the x-axis as your y. Okay? This is your y distance. And then the distance forward is like your x distance. Okay? So that's what you're comparing. And you're comparing the change in the y and the x, the distance of the y-axis and the x-axis. So if you think about it, okay, if you have 2 points, right? And let's say you're starting here, you go up the stairwell and now you're here. Okay? So when you think about it, you know, this is going to have a coordinate x. I'm going to call it x1, y1 to indicate that it's the first coordinate. And then the second point, which is your final location, right, is going to be your second x coordinate and your second y coordinate. So when you take the difference of your y coordinates and the difference of the x coordinates, okay, you're going to get a relationship, a ratio, and that ratio determines how steep the line is. So the formula, okay, generally what we call that is we call that change of y to the change of x, delta y over delta x. But in simple terms, we can call that delta y, okay, to delta x, okay, as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is the formula for the slope, okay? That's going to equal m. And that is the formula that we're going to use every time. So when we do this, okay, and we have 2 points, all right, for example, let's say you had, 0, comma, negative 2, and you have another coordinate 4, comma 0, and you wanted to go ahead and find the slope. What you need to do very carefully is you need to go ahead and label these points as x1, y1. Now, I'm just going to be consistent and go left to right. So the point to my left, I'm just going to call that my first point. Oh, I can't seem to write up there. So this is going to be my first point, hence x1, y1. And then this one is going to be my second point, so I'm going to call that x2, y2. Okay, and it doesn't matter which one you call the first point or the second point, as long as you're consistent labeling them. So if you decide 0, negative 2 is your first point, then your x coordinate or your first x coordinate, x1 is 0, and then your first y coordinate, y1 is negative 2. That means 4, comma 0 needs to be designated as your second point, so you should label it x2, y2. And then you can do that vice versa. You can also label 4, comma 0 as x1, y1, and you can also label x2, y2 for 0, negative 2, all right? But I like to go left to right, first point, second point. It's a little bit easier for everyone, all right? And then we just go ahead and use the formula, okay? M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then you just go ahead and plug in the numbers, okay? So 0, y2 is going to be 0. Take away y1, which is minus 2. Remember, it's 0, take away a minus 2. So you should have parentheses, and then you should have a second minus sign there. And that's going to be over. X2 is going to be 4, take away 0. So 0, a negative and a negative is a positive. 4 minus nothing is, well, let me go ahead and do that here. So 0 plus 2 is 2. 4 minus nothing is 4. That can be reduced to 1/2 because you divide both numbers by 2. Okay? And that is what your slope is going to look like. Okay? So if you graph this, okay, if you graph this on a number line, all right, and so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be my point, 4, comma 0. The other point is 0, negative 2. So that's down here. Okay. And then you have a positive slope because 1/2. So remember, my slope that I got here was m equals 1/2. So that is a positive slope. Because the number is positive, it's not negative 1/2. And this will be a positive slope, so it's going to go from lower left to upper right. And that's what it will look like if you graph it, okay? So another example, pardon me, is let's say you had these 2 points. -1, 3. Again, you're going to label that as x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay? And the formula states that we're taking the difference of the y coordinates to the difference of the x coordinates. So when we do that, when we label it, y2 is clearly 3. Take away y1, which is 3. x2, which is going to be -1, take away 5. 3 minus 3 is 0, and this is going to be a -6. 0 divided by anything is 0. So when I graph these, okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3. So my coordinate is going to be right there. The other one here is -1 and then up 3. So that would be right about there. Notice that when I draw the line and connect these 2 points, it's going to form a horizontal line. And as we mentioned, horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Whoops, let me write that much neater here, okay? More neatly. All right. Now, let's look at this example. So let's say you had -4, 1 and -4, 7. And you label these points x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, use the formula that I gave you. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Plug those numbers in and let's see what we get. y2 is going to be 7, take away. y1, which is just 1. x2 is -4, take away x1, which is again parentheses -4. We want to use parentheses, okay, because we're taking away what kind of a 4? A -4 or -4. So we simplify that. 7 minus 1 is just going to give me 6. And here we have a negative, and a negative is a positive. So that's -4 plus 4. Therefore, it's going to give me 0. And anything divided by 0 is undefined. If you attempt to do that on your calculator, you're going to get an error message. So what is that telling you? Is that when you graph these two, when you plot these 2 coordinates, right? -4, 1, 2, 3, -4, and then 1. So your point's going to be right there. The other here is -4, and then we go up 7. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So your other point here, you go -4, and then you go up 7. You're going to be right about there. So if you graph this, you're going to have a horizontal line. Not a horizontal, a vertical line, excuse me. Vertical line. And vertical line has a slope of undefined. It's undefined slope. All right. So calculating the slope is pretty easy. Okay, you just follow the formula and label the points properly and then plug it into the formula, and then you'll get your slope. It's either going to be a number, or it's going to be 0, or it's going to be undefined. Okay, And you can verify that by graphing the two original points. You can connect them and you'll see exactly what kind of line you have. You'll see that you'll have a vertical line in this case. Previous example was a horizontal line. The other one here was a positive slope. And then just keep in mind that. And when you graph lines, there are 4 scenarios you're going to get with slope. Okay? And the first one is this one. You get that situation. You can also get, like I said, this situation. And then you can also get this situation. Okay, so for this one, this is called a positive slope. Okay, this is a positive slope. This one here is a negative slope. This one here is a slope of 0, and this one here is a slope equals undefined. Okay, so you have 4 scenarios that you could get with slope. Okay, I hope that this video was helpful, and thank you so much for watching.